Hi, my name's Dave Walters. I live locally in a little town here called Bargoed, and where we are standing now, we're actually standing on Gelligaer Common. And this here is a feature of the common which I don't think the people of the area or even the people of Wales appreciate exactly what the history is behind this. Now, it's called Gwladys. Gwladys goes back, as stated there, to about the 4th century, maybe 4th to 5th century. Originally, Gwladys was the daughter of a king called Bargoed. Now, Bargoed was the king of what is today modern day Breconshire. In those days it was called Gwynllyw. So Bargoed was the king of Bargoed. In this particular area, which was Glamorgan and Gwent, we had another king, and his name was Gwladys. Gwladys was the kingdom, I beg your pardon, and his name was Gwynllyw. Now, Gwynllyw was a bit of a ruffian. Not only was he a king, but he was also a bit of a robber. He was a pirate, and he held ships down in Newport in the River Usk there, and he was a pirate and he used to roam the Severn Estuary. Now, on top of this, he was also a bit of a fighter, and it was nothing for him to go from one kingdom to the other, raiding the kingdom, coming back with the cattle, and sometimes murdering people. Now, Bargoed, who was king of Gwynllyw, he was actually a Christian, where Gwynllyw here was not. He was a heathen. And what happened was, every time he sent envoys up to Bargoed to see if he could marry Gwladys, he was turned down. So on the last occasion, instead of going up there and sending envoys up there, it was decided that he would go up there with some 300 warriors. And that's what he did. He set off, took 300 warriors from this kingdom, and he went up what is now the old Roman road to Tryweryn. Now, when he got to Tryweryn, where Bargoed's encampment was, before he actually got to the encampment, they found that Gwladys was actually outside there. She was outside with some of her sisters. Actually, she had 14 sisters, hard to believe, but she did. And she was out there with some of the sisters. So rather than negotiate with Bargoed for the hand of marriage, he decided to abduct her. And that's exactly what he did. He abducted her and he brought her all the way back from Bargoed right down into Fochriw. When he got to Fochriw, Bargoed's army caught up with him. And when he caught up with them, there was a battle that took place. That is fascinating in itself, because that is part of the fact of history, and this was given to us by a monk called Livius. And Livius was a monk who was in Llancarvan Abbey at around about the 10th century. Well, actually, we're talking about between 980 and say 920. So this is when this was written. It was written according to the life of St. Cadoc. St. Cadoc, by the way, was the son of Gwladys. Now, when this battle took place up there, according to the legends, which are in, go back to that period of time, what we find then is that King Arthur was sitting on a place called Fochriw. And we'll see Fochriw later on, possibly you can see where that battle took place. There's a place called Fochriw. And when we get to Fochriw, we'll see exactly where this battle took place and what he actually saw. Well, King Arthur intervened in the battle on the side of Gwynllyw. And when the battle was won, then Arthur actually looked at Gwladys and he thought, hold on, this is one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen. I'd like to get her myself and marry her myself. And he had it in his mind that he was going to abduct her and steal her off Gwynllyw. However, he had two of his lieutenants with him, called Kai and Bedwyr, and they said to him, hold on, if you try and take her now, what's going to happen is, you've still got Gwynllyw's army to the one side, you've still got what's left of Bargoed's army to the other side, and those both armies are going to combine, and we're going to be wiped out. So he thought, well, I better not do that then, and he left it there. And what happened after that was that actually Gwynllyw and Arthur then went down to a place called Dinas Norfa, which we'll see later on, just on top of the mountain by Gwladys, where there's two huge platforms in the side of the mountain. Those were huge houses at that time. They were large houses for the period of time. They were some 20 metres long by about 9 metres wide, so they were big places. They went back there, and that's where they had the feast after the battle. Now, once it was over, the feast had done, Gwynllyw and Gwladys then moved down to Newport and they settled up in a place called Stow Hill in Newport. And if you go down there today, you'll see a church called, actually it's a cathedral now, called St. Gwynllyw. When St. Gwynllyw actually is the Norman name for Gwynllyw. They couldn't say Gwynllyw, it became Gwynllyw. So St. Gwynllyw and Gwynllyw is the same guy. At about the age of 40 to 50, it was decided that they would part. And what happened then was St. Gwladys came back up here, where she settled down in this area, and Gwynllyw stayed down there. Now, she died here, and this actually marks out where her chapel was, or chapel of Gwladys. This is the actual site. Now, it could also be in the outline of the actual house that they built for her. Because during this period of time, the saint would have been living here. Well, she wasn't a saint then, obviously, but she would have been living here. And right around here, you'll say for about 300 meters to the north, and to the east and to the west, you'll see a news embankment. It's an earth embankment that goes way around. Inside that embankment, she had her retainers. They had their houses somewhere here, and in there you had the farmers, you had your servants, you had the lot. So they were the ones that's up here to look after Gwladys. Now, in that period of time, we also know that it was the custom that when you had a chapel or a church named after the saint who lived there, or the founder of it, they normally buried that person somewhere there. And mostly they were buried either here, facing east, or just outside the walls, but in exactly the same line, facing east. So it's possible that she's either buried just beyond this wall, or she's actually buried here. There's been no archaeological digging done here at all. That's very important for the people of this area to understand. There should be an archaeological dig done here to find out exactly what's here. But we often wondered, well, what was King Arthur doing in this area? Well, just north of you at a place called Pentoin, there's a standing stone. It's a very acute angle, at about 45 degrees today. It's about 8 foot 6 inches long. On the bottom of that stone, and we'll see it later, is an inscription in Latin. And that inscription says Dubricius. Now Dubricius is the Latin name for St. Dyfrig. So St. Dyfrig and St. Dubricius are the same person. So it's uncanny why that name would be on that standing stone. And St. Dybricius, according to the legend, was the saint that crowned King Arthur at Caerleon. Now what this really means is this. This area here is a potential for tourism worth tens of millions of pounds to the town of Bargoed, the villages of Derry and Fochriw, and the villages of Pondlot and even Merthyr Tydfil. Now we know that if we go to Tintagel, it's a little village down in Cornwall, the only thing that related there to King Arthur is the story that is where his father, well, he was conceived, I should say, when his father, by some dubious moves, managed to get inside the fortification. Now, that's, as you say, is a fairy story. Maybe all of King Arthur's fairy story, but we know somewhere along the line there was an Arthur. However, when you come to this common, everything here is still here. It relates to King Arthur, and the story that goes back to the 9th century. Chapel of Gwladys. This is the lady, the first lady before Gwynllyw. The standing stone, St. Dubricius, the fellow that actually crowned him. Dinas Northa, where they went back to actually have their meal after the battle. And of course, Fochriw Carn, where you can still sit on that carn today and look across the valley, or should I say the top of the valley, and see where the battle took place. This common, and the history of this common, and the history of St. Gwladys, St. Gwynllyw, and of course King Arthur, is one of the biggest tourist attractions that you could have in Wales, if we only knew or had the willpower to do it. And I'm hoping today that you'll be able to see exactly what I'm talking about, and how interesting, and how this is a catchment area for tourism. The outline of the church, or the chapel of Gwladys, is as seen here. This is is how they found it, and when they started digging down here they found an old 9th century cross, and also they outlined the foundations of this. Now, wouldn't it be fascinating indeed to think of the tourist potential of this if this was used again for marriages, and it wouldn't cost a lot, because all you need to do was pay with this, put a marquee over the top, and you've got a wonderful wedding area. In point of fact, when you think of it, people want to come get married here because this is a place where the lady that King Arthur first wanted to marry is buried. Imagine that. Just imagine it. Now we know from the 12th century that there was a Norman in this area. He was a Norman. He wasn't a knight. He was a soldier of fortune who came this way, and he gave a report about this. And he said that Capel Gwladys was standing here, and to the west of Capel Gwladys there was a round tower. Now that is consistent with the Irish system, whereby they used to build in churches at that period of time, and then a round tower made of stone at the side of this, which is there for protection if they would ever come under attack. And of course, St. Gwladys' father was Irish, so you see the Irish influence here. Now, if you look outside here, you'll see right up the top here, you'll see like a little mound of ferns that goes right across, down on the western side, and it comes back this way, and it comes across on the eastern side of it. Inside there would have been all the retainers that St. Gwladys would have needed to have lived here. There would have been her servants, there would have been farmers, there would have been shepherds, the whole thing. But there's somewhere within this area here, a few hundred square meters, you've actually got some houses, and it'd be lovely if you could find out exactly where they were by. This, just around the other side of this, around about 10 to 20 meters from the centre of this place, you've got another circle of stone. In fact, that is the Llan. So you got the church, the Llan, the circular enclosure, and then a larger enclosure outside that again. But like I said, this could be a tourism magnet in the future, and bring a lot of prosperity to an area that is now really depressed. Earlier on I spoke about St. Gelligaer and his association with King Arthur, in the sense so much that he was the actual saint that crowned King Arthur, I Caerleon. Of course in Welsh is St. Gelligaer. Now this is the standing stone, which is approximately half a mile, you would say, southwest of the village of Fochriw. Now on the side of the standing stone, just on the other side, down below there, there's an inscription in Latin. Unfortunately we can't do it now because there's a bit of a shadow there. But an inscription in Latin says Gelligaer. It's called, the actual stone is called a hawliau stone because of the misspelling and misunderstanding of what the Latin meant. Then in 1793, an Edward Lloyd, who was a historian of his time, came here and he translated, and it's now accepted that the actual name there is Gelligaer, St. Gelligaer. Now, it's very important because, as I spoke of earlier on, this is the only place where you can say something about St. Gelligaer. This, you know, this is a standing stone. Why is it here? Is it a burial stone, or the marker of a burial? If you look behind me, you'll see that there's an outer bank, then a ditch, an inner bank, and then inside there was a oblong shape which was actually about 12 foot by 4 foot, or 12 foot by 6 foot according to the historians, and they believe that this or was someone buried in there. Now this stone itself is facing exactly towards Jerusalem, the Holy Land. It's the southeast. That is a Christian burial, so obviously something to do with him here. Although it's now said that his remains are down in Llandaf Cathedral, in the chapel there, but there's something here connected to him, and unless there's an archaeological dig done here, we'll never know. But this is one site where you can actually say, I'm going to put my hand on a stone that was here during the periods of King Arthur, and the name on the side of there is actually the name of the guy that actually crowned him king at Caerleon. It's a fascinating place. Once more, history is here. It's not a million miles away, it's here. Sometime in the 18th century, some local farmer decided to dig this out because there's a legend about there being gold underneath it, and he dug it out and tried to pull it over but with a horse, but it failed. According to legend, and this is pure legend, once they done that, there was a thunderous clap in the sky and the rains came down and it frightened them so much that they ran away. However, just a little bit here where you've actually got the letters, a group of miners in about the 1860s come up here, and with all their religious zeal, bought a hammer and chisel and tried to chisel the name off the side, because in their ignorance they thought that this actually was a pagan stone, and it's not, it's a Christian stone. This is where you can see the standing stone related to Gelligaer. Gelligaer was the first saint mentioned anywhere in Welsh history or in the Mabinogion that actually had anything to do with King Arthur. He's the first one mentioned there. But I'm going to take you later on to a place called Fochriw Khan. That's where the battle took place, where King Arthur sat and watched the battles that took place below him. And this will be fascinating and interesting to sit King Arthur sat. Again, this is a tourist magnet. Why aren't we doing anything about it? This is Dinas Nolva. As we mentioned in the King Arthur story, in the St. Gwladys story, this is after they fought the battle they came back to. This was a large building, approximately 20 meters long by about 10 meters wide. There were two entrances into it. Both entrances were facing north. Now, there's many mentions of this place, not only in the story of King Arthur and St. Gwladys, but it's also mentioned in the Mabinogion. And this place really goes back. It's been excavated. There was a geological excavation done here by a certain Lady Fox back in 1939. And what they said was this is definitely a 5th century dwelling and a huge place. So here again we've got the King Arthur story moulding into this local area. But the advantage here again is that I can actually go, walk on the floor according to the legend that you walked on, sit down anywhere I wanted to. But people can come here and say, hold on, 5th century, mentioned in the Mabinogion, mentioned later on in the 9th century and 10th centuries, all to do with King Arthur. Anywhere else in the world, this would be one of the most valuable assets they could ever have. How important is this? Where you can come from anywhere in the world and say, I am standing in the place that Arthur stood. I'm walking in his footsteps. This is part and parcel of Welsh history and of the history of Western Europe. King Arthur did not start somewhere in the French courts. King Arthur, and the story of King Arthur, started right here. Right over here in this little country of Wales. Maybe it's something you should tell your children about. Bring them here. Because this again is worth millions of pounds to the local community. Because not far from here they're opening a huge open cast. It could be destroyed. They won't destroy this, but they'll destroy an area of outstanding beauty, again connected to King Arthur, where we believe the battle took place. And that's the next place we're going to. We're going to take you on another little tour, and we're going to take you to Carn Fochriw, where, according to the legend, King Arthur sat, watched the battle take place, got his standard risen high, and went down to fight on behalf of Gwynllyw. So let's go up there next. This is where King Arthur sat and watched the battle take place. This is Fochriw Khan, where you can still come, sit today and see exactly where it was. And in the book, according to the book, King Arthur came here for a sword. Now this is pure fiction, but if King Arthur existed, this is actually what Excalibur would have looked like. This is a cavalry sword, and as King Arthur was a cavalryman, this is the type of sword he would have actually used. Very lethal weapon, as you can strike it down. would have taken place way down there, Fochriw Common. You can imagine himself, go back 1,500 years, and look across that common and you're seeing two armies fighting. And Arthur was sitting here, and then he went down and joined in. He used the Roman road on the side there, joined in the battle that took place down there. What a beautiful view. Make the most of it, because in a short while this view is going to be contested. It's going to be destroyed once and for all. As a tourist area, we can't afford to leave this dry. We can't afford to leave open cast mining destroy this. Let me show you what open cast mining really means. Look what happened over there. The same company was producing those huge waste tips are going to be producing those waste tips on this side. Nothing green left. Nothing green at all. Destroying the views and destroying the environment. The people of Fochriw, people of Pornotin, people of Derry, people of Romney. Why? We have a chance of doing something to bring tourism here and make an industry which can bring new life into the economy of this area. We can do that. Or you can have these tips and open cast mine, where most of the big money has been earned there, is not being earned by local people, but people that were actually brought into the area to work. We're looking for work for our own people, for goodness sake. But if this goes ahead, it spoils it. We can't afford to do that. We've got to look after our own people. People of these, the young people here, they need work here. They don't need a huge open cast and handouts. And there'll be pittance of handouts from this company who'll be saying, look what we're doing for the local youth club or the local football club. No, I want what's going to be done for the hundreds and hundreds of local people. That's what's important. And it's important that this doesn't go ahead, because this is the second rape of the country. We've had the rape of the country through the mines, through the iron industry, but they're not satisfied. They've left something here that they wanted now. The greed of a company that was actually put together to do this sort of work. A company said, hey, first of all, you've got one company which is based in London, another one based in the north of England. What happens? All the wealth has gone up there, and they're throwing you the crumbs again. We don't want this. We don't want Miller Argent to open cast this, because the money is going back into a pension fund for the southeast of England. Please, common sense, get on to, your council's not much good, but we've got to try with them. And if these councillors don't do any good, change your councillors. Get people at will. You decide who they are. But if they know these are no good, change it. If you was in Cornwall, or in Somerset, or any other part of England, and you had this gem on your doorstep, I'm sure you that the people who will be looking after it, your local authority would really be coming here and say, hey, we want to really look after this, let's smarten it up, let's show the people what we've got. And yet, what have we got? Merthyr Borough Council, look at the mess that's around here. Is it out of ignorance that they just don't know the history of their own place? Or is it out of pure neglect? Which one is it? Well, you can decide that. Are you the people of Merthyr, the people of the Rhymney Valley, are you lesser than the people in Somerset and Cornwall? Is your history, as far as they're concerned, doesn't matter. Forget about it, bury it. No, you can't do it. This belongs to our children and our children's children. And we've got to look after it. And we've got to make the people responsible for allowing this answerable to us. Last time this standard was seen flying here,